So welcome to Grow's brand new podcast with myself, Kieron, and Lianne, Grow's Therapeutic Coach. So the reason that we're introducing this new series, mini-series, or whatever it's going to become is sometimes we need more help, and that might not just be with what we eat, but around mindset. Many of you will remember that in March 2024, we held a live emotional eating event at Abergwyn Point Rugby Club, and 150 members turned up and got loads of insight and help and support around emotional eating, its causes. We touched on the menopause, but I feel that we could do more and we could talk more about each of those sections. So today we're going to record several episodes of this brand new podcast with Grow, talking about all aspects of weight loss, why we sabotage, what gets in our way, when we want to do it, what happens. And I'm going to ask Grow's real expert, the brains, I'm just the pretty face, Lianne, what her view is as a therapeutic coach and how you as a member at home watching the video or myself as a coach in one of my groups or one of my coaches can help support you to strengthen your journey and pull you back from self-sabotage. So I hope you enjoy. And if you do love it, give us a like and follow us below. So let's introduce Lianne. So this is your moment to say hello to everyone. We've got a cup already as well. It's lush, isn't it?
Thank you. It is. It's lush. So yeah, I'm Lianne Weaver. I am Managing Director of Beam Development and Training and also founder and owner of Beam Therapy. And I've been working in psychology and therapy for about 14 years. I've got lots of different qualifications in terms of helping people through overcoming trauma, through breaking unhealthy habits, all sorts of different challenges. And I like to use all of the different therapies that I have in my toolkit to empower people to feel happier, healthier, more successful, and to overcome the things that are holding them back.
You make it sound like so easy to change, don't it? But we know it takes time.
There's a thing I always say to clients, which is it's simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah.
Right? So it is simple. If I say whether you're overcoming a grief and anxiety, unhealthy eating habits, it's simple, but that doesn't mean it's an easy thing for us to do. And changing our mindset absolutely requires quite a lot of hard work.
And obviously I've been with you for probably the last 10 or 14 years. Was that your first? and I've explored and strengthened my own understanding around many of these areas, to my own success, to other people's success as well. But you've almost started the first episode in the best place ever. For me, what is a habit?
Oh,
because you said,
that.
I know, what is a
Absolutely.
habit? Because we all know that we have habits, whether they're positive or negative habits.
Yep.
But what are they and where are they formed?
Oh, fantastic question. Okay, so habits are essential for us to survive and thrive. So our brain weighs about 3 pounds, but it consumes 20% of all our calories. So your brain is like a real gas guzzler. And for those of you who overthink, like I know we do, then we probably feel like we're consuming way more in the brain than that. And so the way that our brain conserves energy and kind of combats us avoiding something that we would call cognitive fatigue, just brain exhaustion, is it gets us to really shortcut the things we do over and over again. So when I went into the bathroom this morning and I looked at my toothbrush, I didn't have to go, okay, so I pick it up, I put the toothpaste on, brush here, brush here, brush here.
It's that autonomy, isn't it? It's just auto, it happens.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it can help us with really minor tasks that we don't need much involvement in at all. But it also helps us with really complicated tasks. It basically helps us shortcut things we do all the time. So brushing your teeth, how you make a cup of tea, the way that you shower, but also things like driving a car. So I don't know if you've ever had that experience where you drive somewhere that you've driven loads of times before and you get there and you think, oh,
how did I get here?
Oh, did I stop at those lights?
So is a habit subconscious then? So we use the subconscious mind?
It's all in the subconscious. It's in a part of the brain called the parietal, which is almost our inner computer. Yeah. It's our inner computer. So it's almost like there's constant algorithms just being spun out of our brain to help us shortcut. And a study from Duke University said that we spend about 40% of our waking day in that part of the brain. So about 40% of our day is spent on autopilot. Now, the good side of that is it means that if I'm doing repeated tasks, then I'm saving energy for the tasks that are more novel or demanding. The bad part of that is if I'm doing something today that I wish I didn't, the chances are it's going to be easier to do it tomorrow.
So is this where bad habits kick in?
Yes.
Okay. So we know, and those listening or watching as slimmers will know that when they start their journey to become happy, healthy, fit, and slimmer, they know that they have to address lots of these habits and behaviors that they have. However, we also have really deep-rooted, really strong bad habits.
Yep.
How would somebody change bad habits? Because we know we can do the good stuff, right? So we
Yeah.
know, like, if we want to lose weight in a week or in a couple of weeks, we could just choose to eat less high fat food, less high sugar food, less processed foods. But then when you know that you love chocolate, and I'm sure that anybody listening or watching will have had those moments where it's been in the fridge and it's calling them.
Yep.
And they have a habit where they go and grab it, eat the full bar. How do we stop that? Or how do we make certainly the change?
Okay. So any habit, whatever it is, good or bad, let's take the emotion out of it right now and just like a habit,
Yeah.
right, is created by three key components. So it's motivation, so our motivation to do that thing, ability, my ability to do it, and then the prompt that inspires me to do it. So if we take brushing our teeth as an example, because it's hopefully something that we all have a habit of doing.
Definitely.
Let's hope so, hey? So the behavior is I want to brush my teeth.
Yeah.
Now, many, many, many years ago, dentists realized that people didn't have great oral health. And so a dentist came up with the idea of us brushing our teeth, creating toothpaste, and demonstrated all the benefits, told people why they should do it, started to make it freely available to people, and people would do it a couple of times and never stick to it. So she then started to look into that. Why aren't people doing it? And the reason people weren't doing it is because the motivation was too long term. Because if you've got good teeth now, brushing your teeth now is like, well, it's just hopefully to prevent me from having bad teeth in the future. And what we want as humans is kind of a short-term reward as well as a long-term reward. And so she came up with the idea with putting a mint flavour in that toothpaste, because most of us, when we wake up in the morning, don't have the best taste in our mouth, right?
Depends how the night before went.
So the motivation for short term was if I brush my teeth, I then get rid of this horrible morning breath. If then we look at ability, our ability to brush our teeth has to be fairly easy. And it is, because we're taught it from a really young age. So it's not a really complicated task. Most of us have the physical and mental ability to brush our teeth. So that bit's in place. And then we've got the prompt. So the prompt is most of us have our toothbrush right near the sink with the toothpaste right next to it. So when we get up and go to the bathroom in the morning, it's there as a constant reminder, a prompt. If we had our toothbrush and toothpaste in a cupboard in our bedroom, we probably would forget to brush our teeth much more. So in order for our behavior, for anyone who loves a little sort of acronym and an anagram, this is called BMAP, and it comes from a habits scientist called BJ Fogg. And it's the behavior is changed when we have the motivation to do it, the ability to do it, and then we create prompts to inspire us to do it.
So do you believe, because I believe that any habit can be changed.
Yes.
If we practice it.
Yes.
But we have to practice it and repeat and repeat and repeat. So we have members that will, let's say, struggle with, I'm going to use chocolate. It's such a good one. And they'll go, I'm just not going to eat it.
Yeah.
So that puts the fear of everything into me, because I know that I could not live the rest of my life without some kind of chocolate. So I have to find a new way of being able to fit that in,
Yes.
whether that's a small amount a day. How would you get somebody to, instead of like abstaining from it, and then, which they could do for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they go nuts. How would you build a new habit in around chocolate for somebody that loves chocolate?
So abstaining very rarely works unless we have a huge motivator. So if we keep in mind all the way through this motivation, ability, prompt.
So MAP,
Yeah.
MAP, okay.
Saying I'm never eating chocolate again, we'd need a huge motivator. So maybe you've had a health diagnosis that really scared you, or maybe you had an allergic reaction to it and you thought never again. Or a great way of demonstrating this with food is if you've ever had proper food poisoning. Big motivator to never eat that food again, right? So even if you think of that food again, so the 2 worst poisonings I've had, one was a cheesecake. So, just the thought of it.
Really?
And then the other was vodka as a teenager. So I was so sick off both of those that all these years later, no thanks. So abstaining completely usually requires a really big why.
So I can use smoking.
Yeah.
So I haven't smoked for 8 years.
Amazing.
And the biggest thing for me, that was the damage it was having on the inside that nobody could see.
Yeah.
And I think what propelled that was, so I gave up in April 17, and then in March 18, Dad was diagnosed with non-small cell lung cancer. And I think that, if anything, cemented the not to smoke. And now recently, my mother's been diagnosed with COPD because of smoking. So I've had prompts all the way along, reminding myself that, and I don't even think about smoking. I don't even think about picking up a cigarette. But I was someone that smoked 20 or 40 cigarettes a day.
Yep. So this happens in our life, therefore proves that we do have the ability to change a habit like that.
Okay.
Because all of us have done it. If we use the food poisoning one, most of us have been so sick off of food that we just, and you might have thought you loved it before.
Yeah.
However, most of us don't decide to change our behavior in such an extreme way, with such an extreme reason. So if I'm deciding I want to stop eating chocolate, what are my motivators? I need to eat a bit less sugar, and perhaps my dentist has told me I'm eating too much sugar. Okay, that might be something. I want to lose a little bit of weight, and I know that I have a bar of chocolate at 11 o'clock every day, so that might be something. But they're not huge motivators for me to understand how much positive improvement that would have on my life if I continued that through. So that motivation isn't enough. So the weird thing about human beings is that our ability to motivate ourselves to make a change is really hard to pinpoint. And this is why we get frustrated at ourselves. So your ability to motivate yourself to be a non-smoker, it's just not who you are anymore. There's no way I don't do it.
Absolutely.
Was huge because it affected people you love and care about.
Yeah.
Yeah? However, there are people that we all know, and maybe we're those people ourselves, where we could go to the doctor and the doctor could say, you have to stop smoking, this could kill you. And that person leaves the surgery and lights up a cigarette.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing about human beings is that the motivation to change, sometimes even our life being at risk, is not enough.
So we have this one with fluid. It's fascinating because I use this one quite a lot in group. And if anyone's heard me say this in group, you will know I've used this. When we talk about water, just a simple glass of water. And we talk about hydration being super important. And people are like, I don't like it. I'm like, but if it was 2 pints of cider on a Saturday night or a glass of wine, you'd have no problem with the fluid.
Yeah.
But it comes back down to, I say, well, if your GP said to you, or your doctor said, you need to drink 3 litres of water a day or you will die, you would drink it whether you liked it or not.
So some people wouldn't.
Oh, right, okay.
That's the weird thing about humans, right? Is sometimes we are in a situation where we can be medically told you keep doing X, you will die, and we keep doing X. Now, the interesting thing is, if a doctor could say to you, you keep doing X and the person you love most in the world could die, most of us would stop like that.
Yeah, okay.
So what this leads to is our motivation is also connected to our self-belief, the value we have on ourselves, our self-confidence. And if I don't feel good about myself, if I don't think I'm worth being healthy, that I'm worth improving myself, then someone saying you keep doing this and you're going to die is not enough of a motivator for me.
It's really your self-worth, isn't it, then?
Really, really connected to your self-worth. So this is so much more complicated than the way most of us try and create any habit change is we try and really simplify it. I have to stop doing this, so I'm never going to do it again. And then we might keep that going for a while, but eventually something will trigger us to go back.
So this is where then, for many people who are trying to lose weight, and this might be you, so you might be thinking, I was losing weight really, really well, and it got to Christmas, and I overindulged, and I can't get back into it. So is this what's happening then?
There's so many layers, right? So yes, there's the motivation. Connected to our motivation is our self-worth. Connected to our self-worth is our identity of who we are. So let's go back to the smoking example, because it's a brilliant example. Yeah. So many people try and give up smoking, and then whether they've done it for a week, a year, 10 years sometimes, and then they go back. And that is generally because they've not changed their identity. So if you ever went for hypnotherapy to give up smoking, they would never say to you during that hypnotherapy session, I'm no longer going to smoke. I no longer smoke. What they would say to you is, I am a non-smoker.
Okay.
Do you see the difference there? And what that is stepping into the identity of who you want to be. Now, if we're trying to give up smoking, if we're trying to give up alcohol, if we're trying to make healthier choices with our food, if my identity still is highly connected to who I am when I drink, when I smoke, then changing my habit is going to be really difficult. My identity is essentially what my brain is always going to try and force me to fulfill. So if you use weight as an example, if I have the identity of being the big bloke, I'm the funny big guy, right?
Yeah. I don't know who you might be describing at this point.
If we use males with weight, often males with weight will use that weight of presence, right? So I've worked with someone who is dealing with their weight, and actually when we really explored it, he was the small kid at school. And he had created a story in his head that if I'm big, nobody will pick on me.
Okay.
I'm not the small kid anymore, right? Well, if that's my core identity, and I am told by a doctor to lose weight, or I look in the mirror and I think, I really should, but my identity is still, I'm the big guy. I've got this constant inner battle going on that I don't even know is happening, and my brain will lead me to fulfill my identity, not my desires.
So complicated because we do just think we'll change habits, and like some are easy, and like some habits are much easier to achieve than deep-rooted ones, and so how do we do it? I know we're getting there, but like, so what would it be then? Like, so somebody wants to give something up or change the way that they respond with the food or alcohol.
Yep.
So where do we go with that? Because I know about the identity and who they are, but what simple principles could they start to use to even just start making that change?
So the way that we know habits are most effective are when we work with tiny habits. So we talked before at the emotional eating evening about the problem with willpower. I'm going to test you. What's the problem with willpower?
It depletes throughout the day.
Yeah.
It's like a battery. Say, listen to
I love it.
So it starts at 100% and it gets chipped away throughout the day by different causes and different things.
Exactly. So if we are trying to make a change, then I can't depend on willpower alone. So if I say that I've had a habit of eating a bar of chocolate at 11 a.m. every day, and then I say, I've got to stop that. My motivation isn't high, so we've already looked at that. And then also I think I'll just do it with willpower. I just won't buy it anymore.
Right, okay.
I can stick to that while my willpower is high, but if I'm on a day where I'm tired, where I'm emotional, where I'm not feeling well, my willpower will be depleted, and I think, sod it, I'm having the bar of chocolate.
And I'm sure we've all done it.
All of us
All
have
of
done
us
it.
have done it.
So that's part of the problem. So the way we combat that problem is we start small. So tiny habits rely on very little willpower. So if I create a tiny habit, then actually I am not working against my brain, I'm working with it.
So no swinging big, I'm not having it again. So
that language just kind of triggers our inner rebel as well. So when I'm feeling fed up, I'll just be like, I'm having it.
okay.
Yeah?
Yeah, we've all done it, and I've certainly done it.
Really familiar. So a tiny habit is working on the principle that changing, and this is like a huge light bulb bit, changing a habit is not a temporary thing. Changing a habit is creating a full lifetime change.
Yeah.
Therefore, I have some time to make that change stick, and I don't need to do it all today. This is something I'm going to do forever. I'm going to forever be a non-smoker. I'm going to forever make healthy choices with my food. I'm going to forever be someone who exercises, whatever it is. So a tiny habit accepts the fact that me making a change today won't be noticeable to anyone.
Okay.
And that's something we struggle with, right? We've all had those times where it's like, I've eaten so healthy today, and then we step on the scales and nothing's changed,
Like
right?
I've eaten a salad and I'm still overweight.
So a tiny habit is, how do I start to bring this new identity, this new lifestyle into my life? So for some people, the tiny habit might not even start with food. It might be, I'm someone that does a 5-minute walk every day, if you're completely sedentary. So it's just 5-minute walk, minimal motivation needed. A tiny habit might be, I've been really sedentary, I'm going to do 5 push-ups throughout the entire day. So it might be 1 in the morning, 1 at 11.
Yeah, I'm not on that one yet.
These tiny, tiny things, right? A tiny habit might be that during the week, I make the healthiest choice available. So it's in that moment, I'm going to do the best I can with what I've got. What happens then is something called the compound effect. So
Compound interest?
exactly like that, right? So if I said to you, I can give you £3 million today, or I'll give you a penny today and I'll double it every day for 31 days, which one are you taking?
Well, I'd spend the 3 million very quickly, but I'd have to wait 31 days so I could spend it. So I'd have that money actually longer than the 3 million.
Yeah.
Temptation is probably one of the 3 million.
Yeah. So if we take the 3 million on day one, presuming you don't spend it, not realistic, you're going to have 3 million on day 31.
Yeah.
If you take the penny on day one, up until about day 26, you're on about 5 grand, right? So it's really low. In that last week of compound interest, where we're doubling it every single week, by day 31, you have over 11 million. I know there'll be people working out the maths in there, but I promise you it works.
I'm trying to work math out, you know, we get there.
Yep. So we end up having, by the end of 31 days, it's 11,300,000 something. That's compound interest. For about 3 weeks, you see no real change at all. Your finances are not going to really change in that example. But in the last part of it, you start to have compound growth and you start to see huge changes. Think of habits in that way.
Okay.
So if I think of habits in like, what is easy for me to do today that I can build on to create my new identity, where I need very little motivation, then today, maybe next month, you're not going to see much. But I tell you what, in 6 months' time, you're going to see a huge change.
So obviously, when somebody wants to change habits, we know it, you know, within our everyday balance plan there, nothing is restricted. But for a member that really wants to change their habit around chocolate, they're going to need to commit to making that change. Whatever the motivation is, obviously, to help them achieve whatever the goal is that they've set, they need to start with small steps around chocolate. Then, not like, I'm never having it again, I'm not going to ban it. Learning that, how would they learn it? What would they do?
It depends on the relationship they have with the chocolate.
Okay.
So I'm sure we'll talk in other episodes, and we touched on in a live session about emotional eating and our emotional connection, and chocolate absolutely is one of those foods. But let's just kind of leave that aside for the moment, and let's just work on, how do I change my habit of having a bar of chocolate at 11 a.m. every day? So it really depends on the individual. So abstaining will always cause a bit of inner resentment. If I abstain, then there's part of me, I always think of it as kind of a defiant teenager in there. That's me. On a bad day, just going to go, I'm having it, right? And now I'm having 4 of them because I've denied myself.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So the best way of kind of working with that is working with what you know is the limit of that pushing yourself before you're relying on motivation too much. So for some people, that could be enough that they go, do you know what? I'm only eating chocolate bar on the weekend. Some people might be able to do that and be really comfortable with it. Some people might say, well, instead of having like the full size bar every day, I'm going to have like the lunchbox bar, you know, the little mini bar.
Yeah.
Some people might go, do you know what? I just want 1 piece of chocolate a day. So I'm just going to do that. You've got to work with who you are. And it's hard to give this kind of advice broadly speaking because we have those emotional connections. We have outside pressures. You might sit next to someone at work that is eating chocolate all the time. And so you're constantly, you know, when I talked about the prompt bit, if there's a bar of chocolate in front of you, that prompt is really big.
It's like a tin of Quality Street.
Exactly.
At Christmas,
and it's just one, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if it's one every 10 minutes, it starts to matter. So if we go back to BMAP, so my behavior changes when I'm motivated, and we're using tiny habits to work on as little motivation as possible, then I have the ability to do it. All of us have the ability to not eat chocolate for a day. It's not something we have to have, even though I know
it's not keeping us alive, although we think it does.
Exactly. But then think about the prompt. So if I know I have a lovely bar of chocolate in my cupboard, then I don't know about you, but it kind of calls me through the day.
Lovingly.
Yeah, eat me. But how do I stop that? Well, let's create barriers to the prompt. Let's remove the prompt. Perhaps one of the new habits is that I don't buy chocolate. So then I'm only facing my challenge with chocolate when someone else offers it to me. And I would definitely say, using the GROW plan, if you are someone that feels you need chocolate, then build in little bits so you're not going through that denial and that resistance.
And would you find then, so if they're going to build bits in, would you find almost like your tolerance level? So I see this as a bit like a balance point.
Yeah.
So I know that 1 small bar of dairy milk doesn't bother me. I enjoy it. I might have it now and again. But if I'm having a really rebellious day and I have 2, then the balance starts to shift.
Yeah.
It could very quickly go to 3.
Yeah. So I think this would lead into where we talk about emotional eating, because there's definitely emotion involved in there, and how we would bring mindfulness to eating that chocolate, which potentially is another video.
Lovely. Okay, so we're looking at then, so in changing habits, we're looking at they feed into the bigger goal, make them smaller.
Yep.
And look at,
your identity
who
is
you
huge.
are. Yeah.
Really, really huge. Think about, and it's a really nice exercise for you to do, not always comfortable, but actually if you just sat there for an hour, half an hour, and think about, what is my identity? You know, if I said to my best mate, describe me, how would my partner describe me?
I'm sure it would be colourful and wonderful and be amazing.
So our identity is made up not just from our own stories, but the stories we have. And then we also have family identity, you know, so some people are like, oh, we're all big in our family. That's an identity story, right? So explore that a little bit and see if maybe you can start to change some of those stories and create an identity. And when I work with clients, and I'm sure we'll talk about this loads in future episodes, the main affirmation, the main story I tell them to choose is I make healthy choices. I make healthy choices means I don't have to abstain. I don't have to never go for a meal out again. I don't never have to have the birthday cake, but I make a healthy choice in that moment.